What if the beloved fairy tale of Little Red Riding Hood wasn't just a children's story, but a dark, twisted warning rooted in real-life horrors? Behind the innocent facade of a girl in a red cloak lurks a chilling history of werewolves, witchcraft, and blood-soaked folklore. Could this bedtime story have been inspired by savage wolf attacks, occult rituals, or even a 16th-century serial killer? Tonight, we unravel the spine-tingling truth hidden beneath the fairy tale's surface, and you'll never see Little Red Riding Hood the same way again. Enter the mesmerizing world of the Little Red Riding Hood, a timeless tale that has enchanted generations of children. But don't be fooled by its seemingly innocent facade. Beneath lies a rich tapestry of folklore, dark magic, and astonishing secrets waiting to be revealed. What evolved into a cautionary tale for children began life as a macabre and unsettling narrative, interwoven with themes of sexual taboo and the occult. Yet what sets this story apart is the tantalizing possibility that its origins may be rooted in truth. Could the menacing wolf be more than just a creature of legend? Is it possible that Little Red Riding Hood's tale is based on a real-life historical event? Join me on an enthralling expedition through the ancient forests of myth and legend as we uncover the winding path that led to the creation of this timeless tale. But brace yourself, for as we venture deeper into the shadows, we may confront a truth more unsettling than we ever dared to imagine. Welcome back, Darklings. Before we delve into the rich history behind the tale, let's first examine the most widely recognized rendition of the Little Red Riding Hood story. Numerous renditions of Little Red Riding Hood exist, with the earliest iterations decidedly unsuitable for children, steeped in dark and mature themes. However, the version that most of us are familiar with today closely mirrors the one published by the brothers Grimm in their 1812 collection, Children's and Household Tales. In the brothers Grimm's rendition, Little Red Riding Hood is portrayed as a gentle and innocent child. Her affectionate nickname stems from the gift of a red hooded cloak, bestowed upon her by her grandmother, a treasured possession that she wears at all times. One day, Little Red Riding Hood's mother gives her a basket with cake and wine. She tells the girl, "Take these to your grandmother. She's not feeling well, and they will make her better. But remember, don't talk to strangers and stay on the path." Little Red Riding Hood promises to heed her words and sets off into the woods. But along the way, she meets a sly wolf. The wolf greets her, concealing his sinister intentions. He asks her where she is going and what she has in her basket. Oblivious to the danger, Little Red Riding Hood innocently tells him everything. The cunning wolf pretends to be friendly and suggests, "Little Red Riding Hood, why rush? Take your time and enjoy the forest. Look at the beautiful flowers growing over there, just beyond the path." Excited, Little Red Riding Hood replies, "I'll go and pick some for my grandmother. She'll love them." And off she goes, chasing after one flower and then another, straying far from the safety of the path. Meanwhile, the wolf eagerly dashes to the grandmother's cottage, hunger driving his steps. Upon discovering as Little Red Riding Hood's grandmother in bed, he swiftly devours her. Then, donning her nightgown and bedcap, he nestles into the bed, his appetite growing as he waits patiently for Little Red Riding Hood's arrival. As Little Red Riding Hood approaches the cottage, she notices the door slightly ajar. Upon entering, she finds her grandmother lying in bed, her cap pulled low over her face. Noticing her grandmother's unusual appearance, Little Red Riding Hood exclaims, "Oh, grandmother, what big ears you have!" The wolf, disguised as the grandmother, responds, "All the better to hear you with, my dear." Little Red Riding Hood continues, "Oh, grandmother, what big eyes you have!" All the wolf replies, "All the better to see you with, my dear." She then remarks, "Oh, grandmother, what big hands you have!" All the wolf replies, "All the better to hug you with, my dear." If Little Red Riding Hood, growing uneasy, exclaims, "Oh, grandmother, what a horribly big mouth you have!" With a sinister grin, the wolf declares, "All the better to eat you with." And in an instant, he leaps out of bed and eats Little Red Riding Hood. The wolf then nestles back into bed, drifting into a deep slumber, his snores echoing through the cottage. By stroke of luck, a passing huntsman hears the peculiar snoring and decides to investigate. As the huntsman steps into the cottage, his eyes fall upon the sight of the wolf sprawled out in the bed. A solemn thought crosses his mind. The grandmother has been eaten, but maybe there's still a chance to save her. Taking a pair of scissors, the huntsman begins to cut open the wolf's belly. He catches sight of a glimmer of red, the unmistakable hue of Little Red Riding Hood's cap. With each incision, anticipation mounts until suddenly, Little Red Riding Hood jumps out, trembling and exclaiming, "I was so scared! It was so dark in there!" Her grandmother then also emerges unharmed. Together, they gather hefty stones and fill the wolf's body with them. When the wolf stirs and attempts to flee, he finds himself immobilized by the weight of the stones and falls down dead. The huntsman takes the wolf's pelt as a trophy. Grandmother eats the cake and wine brought by Little Red Riding Hood. And as they sit together, Little Red Riding Hood reflects, "As long as I live, I will never leave the path and run off into the woods by myself, if Mother tells me not to." So in the Grimm's tale, there's also an intriguing after-story where Little Red Riding Hood and her grandmother face another wolf. However, this time, they outsmart the creature by luring it to fall from the cottage roof, where it tumbles into a trough of water and drowns. This rendition, alongside the variations we grew up with, carries a powerful message, urging children to heed their parents' guidance and warnings. It serves as a stark reminder of the perils of engaging with strangers, emphasizing the importance of caution and obedience for their own safety. But previously, the story conveyed a rather different moral warning. The Grimms undoubtedly reimagined the tale from an earlier version published in 1697. Le Petit Chaperon Rouge, written for primarily adult audiences by author Charles Perrault. In Perrault's version, Little Red Riding Hood is portrayed as exceptionally beautiful, described as the prettiest creature who was ever seen. See, a significant difference occurs when she enters her grandmother's cottage, where the wolf invites Little Red Riding Hood to join him in bed. To the wolf's delight, she complies, removing all her clothing and slipping beneath the covers. The iconic exchange follows, but instead of remarking on the size of the wolf's mouth, Little Red Riding Hood exclaims, "F grandmother, what big teeth you have got." To which the wolf chillingly responds, "All the better to eat you up with." In this rendition, there's no heroic rescue to be found. It ends bluntly with the wolf eating Little Red Riding Hood. Perrault concludes the tale with a cautionary moral, advising that attractive, well-bred young ladies should never talk to strangers, for if they should do so, they may well provide dinner for a wolf. I say wolf, but there are various kinds of wolves. There are also those who are charming, quiet, polite, unassuming, complacent, and sweet, who pursue young women at home and in the streets. And unfortunately, it is these gentle wolves who are the most dangerous ones of all. Perrault's rendition serves as a stark warning against the dangers of men's sexual desire and the repercussions of yielding to temptation. This rendition, with its moral teachings, aligns perfectly with the societal norms and context of Perrault's era. Perrault initially pursued a legal career before transitioning into government service, eventually finding himself in the esteemed court of King Louis XIV. Within this setting, where the pursuit of advantageous marriages was common, young women from affluent families were often courted by ambitious suitors seeking to elevate their own social standing. In this light, the tale of a Little Red Riding Hood is advising young women to exercise caution against the allure of charm and to safeguard their virtue. It's difficult to envision the tale without the iconic image of Little Red Riding Hood, clad in her distinctive red cloak. However, it was Perrault who bestowed this trademarked garment upon her. Prior to his rendition, there was no mention of what the story's heroine wore, nor was she referred to as Little Red Riding Hood. Some speculate that Perrault's choice of attire may have been influenced by the symbolism associated with the color red. Historically, red carried connotations of sin, sensuality, and the devil, often associated with scandalous behavior and prostitution. Additionally, red could symbolize sexual maturity, marking the transition into womanhood and the loss of innocence, encapsulating themes of puberty and the onset of menstruation. It's widely believed that Perrault drew inspiration from a folk tale known as the false grandmother, when crafting's Little Red Riding Hood. This precursor to the story possesses a darker tone in many respects. On her journey to her grandmother's house, the heroine encounters not a wolf but a werewolf at a crossroads, who inquires whether she's taking the path of needles or the path of pins. Opting for the path of needles, the girl watches as the werewolf selects the path of pins. The werewolf arrives at the grandmother's cottage ahead of the girl and devours the old woman, then places some of her flesh in the pantry and her blood in a bottle. When the girl arrives, the werewolf urges her to partake of the food and wine from the pantry. As the girl begins her meal, the grandmother's cat speaks to her, stating, "Fue slut is she who eats the flesh and drinks the blood of her grandmother." The werewolf then instructs the girl to undress and join him in bed. Agreeing, she asks, "What should I do with my apron?" The wolf replies, "Toss it into the fire, my child. You won't be needing it anymore." She takes off each article of clothing one at a time, her bodice, dress, skirt, and stockings. Each time, she inquires where to put these items, and the werewolf tells her to throw them into the fire, where the flames consume them. As she gets into bed, the familiar verbal exchange unfolds. Yet this time, the girl quickly realizes she is in danger and feigns a need to use the bathroom. Initially, the werewolf suggests she relieve herself in the bed, but the girl insists on going outside. Reluctantly agreeing, the werewolf secures a rope around her ankle to ensure her return. Seizing the opportunity, the girl cunningly loops the rope around a plum tree before darting off toward home, presumably nude. The wolf waits for her return, only to realize too late he's been outsmarted. He gives chase, but the girl's nimbleness allows her to reach the safety of her home just in time. One intriguing aspect of this tale is the absence of any mention of the wolf's disguise. Some scholars speculate that the heroine was already aware of the true identity of the creature in the bed. After all, it seems logical that anyone would strip naked and climb into bed with their grandmother. Viewed through this lens, the gradual removal of each item of clothing could be interpreted as a striptease. Likewise, the verbal exchanges. "Oh, grandmother, what big hands you have," and so forth, could be seen as flirtatious taunting. Undoubtedly, there's a peculiar and unsettling sexual undertone to this story. The precise age of the false grandmother remains shrouded in mystery, as it was orally transmitted in Europe until folklorists began documenting these narratives in the 20th century. But the abundance of imagery linked to witchcraft within the tale suggests a historical origin of the 15th or 16th century. Within the story, the talking cat stands as a notable motif. During that era, cats were often feared, believed to herald the presence of evil, embodying either the devil himself or a witch in disguise. Additionally, the act of consuming flesh and blood within the narrative bears resemblance to the Eucharist, the sacramental ritual of consuming the body and blood of Christ. But this consumption is of the flesh and blood of her grandmother, so it appears to be an act of witchcraft, perhaps even a satanic ritual, a kind of black mass. The inclusion of the werewolf in the tale adds another layer of intrigue. Although werewolf legends have ancient roots, the belief in werewolves emerged in tandem with the belief in witches, reaching a pinnacle of widespread terror from the 15th to the 17th centuries. It's worth noting that our modern conception of werewolves as half-man, half-wolf entities differs significantly from historical portrayals. Prior to the 1941 film The Wolf Man, most depictions of werewolves either presented them in human form or resembling ordinary wolves. This evolution in imagery might shed light on how Little Red Riding Hood could mistake a wolf for her grandmother, as he would have appeared as a regular human man who just happened to be a werewolf. The term werewolf also often served as a metaphor for Satan. This association stemmed from the imagery of Jesus as a shepherd, with devout Christians likened to his flock. When the heroine first meets the werewolf, it is at a crossroads. In Western folk mythology, a crossroads can be used to summon a demon or the devil in order to make a deal. This legend can be seen in many stories, Historically, it was believed that witches engaged in sexual unions with demons, or even with the devil himself, in exchange for their supernatural powers. Perhaps this is what is unfolding within the false grandmother story. While the witch trials of history are widely known, what often goes unnoticed is the prevalence of werewolf trials in the same period. Tales of these trials, along with the accompanying hysteria and fear surrounding werewolves, likely influenced the false grandmother, and, therefore, the evolution of Little Red Riding Hood, the infamous 1598 case of Peter Stump, also known as Zez the Werewolf of Bedburg, marked a significant peak in the interest and persecution of alleged werewolves, particularly in French-speaking and German-speaking Europe. Peter Stump, a wealthy farmer and widower with 2 adolescent children, enjoyed a favorable reputation in the community. However, beneath his seemingly pleasant exterior lurked a perverse wickedness unknown to those around him. According to his own testimony, Stump's life took a dark turn at the age of 12 when he delved into the practice of occult black magic. This descent eventually culminated in a fateful meeting with Satan himself. During this encounter, the devil bestowed upon Stump a magical girdle or belt, granting him the ability to transform into the likeness of a greedy, devouring wolf, strong and mighty, with eyes great and large, which in the night sparkled like fire, a mouth great and wide, with most sharp and cruel teeth, a huge body and mighty paws. Peter confessed to murdering and devouring 14 children, one of which was his own son, as well as 2 pregnant women. He would stalk his unsuspecting victims, often young maidens, sexually assaulting the women before murdering them. Many of these victims disappeared, never to be seen again. It was reported that while in wolf form, Stump also attacked and mutilated animals such as deer, sheep, and goats, devouring their flesh raw. In those times, there was a prevailing belief that women were responsible for leading men astray, reminiscent of Eve's influence over Adam in the Bible. Thus, when Stump confessed to an incestuous relationship with his own daughter, she was condemned to death. Similarly, his mistress, Catherine, met the same fate, authorities attributing her actions to witchcraft or diabolic persuasion. Both women were burnt alive at the stake. Interestingly, in The False Grandmother, the heroine is depicted as engaging in acts of witchcraft and enticing the wolf, perhaps echoing this idea. Stump was charged with sorcery, black magic, consorting with the devil, cannibalism, incest, and harboring a relationship with a she-devil. His execution on the 31st of October 1589 is one of the most brutal on record. He was put to a wheel where flesh was torn from his body with red-hot pincers. Then, his limbs were broken before he was beheaded and his body burned. As a warning against similar behavior, local authorities erected a pole with the torture wheel and the figure of a wolf on it, and at the very top, they placed Peter Stump's severed head. However, the true extent of Stump's crimes remains uncertain. He only confessed when subjected to excruciating torture. The suspicions surrounding Stump arose from a villager's claim of sighting a wolf with a missing paw fleeing from one of the crime scenes, a detail that aligned with Stump's own physical impairment, having previously lost his left hand due to an injury. The harrowing trial of Peter Stump echoed throughout Europe, captivating audiences through printed pamphlets that circulated widely, fueling the pervasive fear of werewolves. It's plausible to imagine Peter Stump evolving into a feared archetype, potentially embodying the infamous wolf character from Little Red Riding Hood. His gruesome deeds echo the themes within The False Grandmother story, prompting speculation that his infamous case may have served as the catalyst for its creation. Another compelling aspect to consider is the historical frequency of wolf attacks on humans, which could further enrich the narrative. For centuries, wolves were vilified and generally feared as man-eating predators throughout Europe. They were seen as a grave threat, with bounties offered in relentless campaigns to exterminate them. Today, our perception of wolves has undergone a profound shift, recognizing them as timid creatures, avoiding human contact whenever possible. However, this raises the question, why do historical records abound with instances of wolf attacks? One explanation could be the onset of the Little Ice Age, spanning the 15th to the 19th centuries, This period ushered in bitterly cold winters, with phenomena like the freezing of the Bosporus in Turkey for months on end. In the midst of such unforgiving conditions, wolves confronted diminishing prey within the forests, compelling them to encroach upon farms for livestock, or even to infiltrate urban areas in desperate pursuit of sustenance. And as the bitter winter of 1450 descended upon Paris, a chilling terror gripped the city as it fell prey to an onslaught of ravenous man-eating wolves. In 1450, Paris endured an unprecedented winter, with freezing temperatures turning wells and rivers into ice, and burying the city under thick blankets of snow. Emerging from the shadows of the 100 Years' War, Paris found itself exposed, its once mighty city walls damaged and weakened. Seizing upon this vulnerability, a savage pack of wolves infiltrated the city, led by a colossal beast with a fiery red coat. This leader, dubbed Cordron, owed his name to his unmistakable trait, a stubby tail that earned him the nickname translating to bobtail. At first, the wolves preyed upon those unfortunate souls who were sleeping rough and had succumbed to the cold, or those recently deceased that lay in shallow graves. But soon, the wolves became emboldened by the taste of human flesh, and they began to prowl the streets of Paris by night, hunting down the local residents in ruthless packs. Mass hysteria engulfed the city as tales spread of women and children torn from the street in broad daylight. In the first month, the wolves killed 40 people. Yet in the following weeks, as their ranks swelled, they slaughtered several hundred more. Parisians endured endless months of terror, haunted by the howls that echoed through the streets. A grim omen of impending doom. Yet from the depths of fear, the Parisians became united in defiance. With grim determination, a band of courageous volunteers devised a daring plan. Dragging a slain cow through the streets, they baited the wolves, leading them with a bloody trail towards the heart of the city. Slowly but surely, Cordron and his savage pack were drawn into the waiting embrace of the enraged populace. In a climactic showdown under the gaze of Notre Dame, the citizens of Paris stood united against their lupine foes. Surrounding the pack, they hurled stones and spears at the invaders until not a single wolf remained standing. Among the triumphant cries of the crowd, Cordron, once the terror of Paris, was paraded lifeless through the streets, a grim trophy of victory over adversity. The accuracy of the historical accounts of the wolves of Paris is dubious, with the possibility of exaggerated death tolls fueled by widespread hysteria. Yet despite cold weather and ecological turmoil, experts widely attribute the wolf attacks in Paris to rabid wolves. In contemporary times, strides in science have provided avenues for combating the menace of rabies. Nations like Germany have achieved rabies-free status through innovative measures such as the widespread use of oral vaccine baits, which is why wolf attacks are almost non-existent today. Rabies induces a frenzied aggression and erratic behavior that can be transmitted to humans through bites or scratches. It's theorized that werewolf stories emerged as a way to explain rabies in times of limited understanding of the disease. By attributing it to the occult, beyond the historical context, Little Red Riding Hood's narrative intertwines with echoes of older tales. The iconic dialogue, such as, "Oh, grandmother, what big hands you have!" bears resemblance to a scene from the Poetic Edda, a 13th century collection of Norse stories. In it, Loki faces the challenge of explaining why the supposed bride Freya exhibits unusual behavior to the giant Thrym, who is unaware that it is actually Thor in disguise. When Thrym questions why Freya devours an ox, 8 salmon, and 3 casks of mead, Loki explains, "It is because she has had such a longing to join you. She has not eaten for 8 days. See." When Thrym remarks on Freya's ghastly eyes, Loki answers, "It is because she has had such a longing to see you. She has had no sleep for 8 nights. Loki's cunning explanations for Freya's actions, akin to the wolf's deception in Little Red Riding Hood, ultimately lead to the giant's demise. Another possible precursor to Little Red Riding Hood appears in a text written in the 11th century by a priest. In this tale, a young girl clothed in a red wool tunic, given to her by her godfather, encounters a wolf while wandering in the woods. The wolf, initially aggressive, is softened by the girl's innocence and refrains from harming her demonstrating the power of divine intervention to temper even the fiercest of creatures. In ancient Greece, a haunting legend recounts the tale of a man who, after committing a heinous act against a local maiden, faced the wrath of his community and was stoned to death. However, his death was only the beginning, for he returned as a vengeful demon, cloaked in a wolf's skin. With ferocious abandon, he started to kill the unsuspecting populace one by one to quell his insatiable hunger. The fearful villagers erected a temple in his honor. Each year, they selected the fairest maiden among them, sacrificing her to the beast as a grim tribute. Hoping to stave off further devastation, the cycle continued until Euthymus, a celebrated boxer and Olympic champion, ambushed the demon in a fierce battle. He drove the beast out from the temple, hurling it into the depths of the sea, liberating the land from its terror. While bearing resemblances, it remains uncertain whether these ancient tales directly influenced Little Red Riding Hood, or if their similarities are merely coincidental. As we emerge from the labyrinth of folklore and history, Little Red Riding Hood stands as a timeless tale that continues to enthrall audiences of all ages. Its enduring appeal undoubtedly lies in its captivating blend of innocence with darkness. This tale serves as a mirror to our deepest fears and offers fascinating insights into the evolution of society over time. With each rendition, we are granted a glimpse into the superstitions and values of bygone eras. In the end, whether viewed as a cautionary tale, a reflection of historical context, or an exploration of the human psyche, Little Red Riding Hood remains a testament to the enduring power of storytelling, to illuminate the darkest corners of our imagination and to shape our perceptions of the world around us. But what aspect of Little Red Riding Hood fascinates you the most? Let me know in the comments below. And until next time, stay curious, Darklings.